Hi, it's Matt Denning reporting in from my restoration facility just north of Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Today we're going to concentrate on some of the work that Adam has been doing on the saddle fillet and other fairings on Kermit's fuselage. Adam's very highly skilled at doing this sort of complex curvature work with sheet metal, and so it's terrific to have his skills involved in the restoration of Kermit's Boomerang. So we'll just give you a little bit of an introduction on the sort of overview of the work that he's been doing, and then we'll get into the actual videos of Adam doing that work. I hope you enjoy. Starting down the back of Kermit's Boomerang fuselage, you can see there's quite a number of fillets and fairings which transition off the side of the fuselage and up onto the underside of the horizontal stabiliser. This is repeated as well on the upper side of the stabiliser with these other fillets and fairings, and in particular there is one quite complex fairing at the front of all of this which we call the saddle fillet. As you can see, it transitions up onto the leading edge of the vertical fin and also up onto the timber fuselage shell. In addition, it also transitions onto the horizontal stabilisers on both sides. So it's quite a complex panel, and it's taken a lot of work to get it into this final shape, but Adam's done a fantastic job in doing that. As we move along the side of the fuselage, you can see there's some panelling put on here, which is located at the rear of the exhaust. Okay, there's a large exhaust duct that's located just in this region in here, in which the exhaust pipe sits. And as part of that installation, there is an infill panel that goes into this exhaust duct. This is an original sample of one that was used in service. So you can see that this hole here, which was actually produced in the factory during the war, used to take a heating duct off the back of the exhaust pipe that went down through this panel into the inside of the aeroplane and out to the gun bays in each wing, where it was meant to keep the ammunition warm when the aeroplane was operating at high altitude. As it turned out, with most of the Boomerang operations in New Guinea, which were low level and flying in a fairly hot tropical environment, this ducted hot air wasn't needed. So this hole was actually plated over by most of the 4 squadron Boomerangs in operation in New Guinea. You can see on the back of this original panel there's a couple of reinforcement strips here to stop the panel from warping in flight. There's also a curved transition piece here which also has a spot welded bracket on the back of it. So it was necessary to reproduce this panel in fresh material for Kermit's restoration. So, which is this particular panel here. As you can see, we haven't included the hole for the hot air duct, but this transition piece, the curved section, has been made, and on the back there are these stiffeners and also the additional doubler, all spot welded to keep all these parts in place. And this particular panel locates in that position. During the course of the videos that you'll see, Adam will be generating this part and locating it in conjunction with the exhaust duct which sits in this area. This primed piece that you can see in the foreground is actually the exhaust duct. So on the other side of it, you can see this polished metal which is stainless steel, and that forms the inner part of the exhaust duct in which the exhaust pipe sits. There's another 2 layers associated with this. So on the other side of the stainless steel, as you can see just forward in this area, is a heat resistant cloth, and that gets sandwiched between that stainless steel skin and this inner aluminium skin. The whole lot of this goes to fill that whole region in through here on the right hand side of the fuselage. So in order to make this aluminium skin over the top, this particular support frame was produced so that the stainless steel could fit snugly on top of it and be bolted down as well to allow this aluminium skin to be produced and also drawn over the stainless steel without changing the shape of the stainless or distorting it. This helped to maintain the shape of all this so that it would bolt back into the aeroplane easily. Scott's gone along and he's riveted now all of these floating anchor nuts right around the edges of the exhaust duct. That allows all the surrounding panels to this exhaust duct to be attached to it when the aeroplane is assembled. There's some other panels as well that Adam's been working on, and these are very close to their final shape now. So there's D-shaped panels that are located just to the rear of the cockpit. So if I just pan up onto the fuselage, you can see here there's the right hand side D panel in place. So just to the rear of the cockpit, on the left hand side there's a hinging door which also incorporates the D panel on the other side. So if we look at these original panels here, it's quite a corroded piece, but it's actually a good shaped sample of what is needed to be made. And that actually bolts in to this other panel, which is the complete side access door. So if we look on the other side here, you can see part of the original foliage green paint that was on this panel. On the inside of that outer skin is this pressed panel as well. You can see how it has raised edges all around, and that raising gives it some additional strength to stop the panel warping. So this internal panel also needed to be replaced because the original was quite cracked, broken, distorted and unable to be repaired. So fortunately, with Adam's metal forming skills, he has reproduced this D-shaped panel in all its glory, with all the joggles and formed edging as per the original. I'll just pop that on the original panel down there. He's also produced an inner skin here to replicate the other original panel. So these will get some final trimming and positioning in place, and in combination with a new outer skin, this will be the new radio access door on the left-hand side of the aeroplane just after the cockpit. Okay, so we've got a bit more work to do on the saddle fillet down the rear end of the Boomerang, and we have Adam back with us today, and he's going to continue on getting a bit more work done to this fillet. So yeah, Adam, please tell us what you're up to today with continuing the work with the saddle fillet.
Sure. How you doing, guys? So on the saddle fillet panel, we've got the shape mostly there, and all the parts are being created for this plane. So what we're doing is just refining the areas down, so you can see we've got some like overlap, and the part is slightly oversized. So we can start to shift the panel to where it's going to fit best, and all these curvatures back here are just going to sit down nicely. So we need a little bit of bend back here to make it sit where it needs to, and we can figure out if we need to add more or less shape into these areas. So that's what we're going through now, is just working out how all these shapes interact with each other and where we need to move, shape and bend the metal to really get it to sit nicely.
Okay. Yeah, so you're just going to mark some lines on there to sort of point out where you think you need to do some adjustments?
That's it. And we'll look at where we need to do some adjustments. And to figure that out, we're looking at the shape of the plane, because you've got this curvature of the wing through here, and they all interact. So you'll have the same curvature of the wing come flow up into this top panel here. And you can see it like comes almost up to the front, where all this curves out to.
Yep.
So we need to know where all these shapes interact first, so that when it doesn't end up with like big humps and hollows and a big funny looking shape by the end of it.
Yes, and you're reasonably happy with the general shape of this upper part here.
So we've worked on this upper part first, and that's all sitting pretty nicely now. And the one confusing part of this top piece is looking down the fuselage. It gets to the rear rudder, and the rear rudder's kicked off 1 degree.
That's
how it's
right.
designed from the factory.
Yes, yeah, the fin has some offset, yeah.
Fin has that offset. So our natural sort of approach to it would be to make a straight line through here, but because this rudder's offset slightly, it ends up being a sort of slightly concave shape here.
Yeah, so really the saddle fillet isn't totally symmetrical because of that.
That's it, not totally symmetrical.
Yeah, one side's a little bit different to the other.
One side's a little bit different to the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful shapes, how they're all interconnected to each other.
Yeah.
It's one of the most complicated but cool looking pieces at the end.
That's for sure, yeah. So I can see you've been using the shrinking machine and there's still a few marks in it for where the material's been required to be pulled together, but of course that will all smooth out as the panel is finished off.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So once we have it all in shape and all these edges are fitting flushly together, so you can see it needs a bit more bend through here to get it to sit down.
Yeah.
We'll weld the joins, and the last part is just to smooth out all of these surfaces, so it'll be a nice, clean, smooth finish, exactly the same as this.
All right, well we might follow you through for some of the work you'll do to this panel to get it in its final shape and work towards getting it trimmed and finally welded as well. Yeah, so Adam's been marking up some of the panels with some of the lines where references need to be marked on there for different areas that need to be shaped. So yeah, Adam, if you can sort of explain those shapes you have there.
Yeah, sure. So we've got the stabilizer, the fin, and the fuselage all joining at this point, and there's the intersection lines where they start to merge. So we've got to figure out where those are, so we can join the shapes together without it being too messy. So our shapes are in the right place now. We've got the right amount of like stretch and shrink. So what we're going to do is go over to the English wheel necks and just bend this curvature around.
Okay.
Hopefully get this to sit down further. Then that should start to fit the plane quite nicely.
Yeah, all right.
Let's have a look here. We've got those lines marked out on both sides.
Right, yeah, so depending on which way you put it into the English wheel.
Yeah, you can reference both sides.
Okay.
So you can use this English wheel in two ways. So we can actually thin the material out and make it longer to change the shape.
Okay.
At the moment, we've got no pressure on this, so we're just using it to bend the material.
Right.
And it just makes it very accurate for exactly where we can bend it. Okay. I'm just putting slight weight down on this to bend it around.
Mm-hmm.
So just do a few more lines through here.
And the sort of rocking motion you're doing helps it to move along in the metal as you go.
That's it. So each time we run it to the wheel, we're sort of getting to one end and then changing direction.
Okay.
And then bring it back and then changing direction. So that we're going in straight lines.
Yes.
And then slowly working our way down the panel.
Okay. Yeah, we can actually see the panel moving along as you're wheeling.
That's it. So
Down,
I've
down the panel.
got pressure downwards here.
Okay.
And as I go on that straight line, I'm pushing down and it's just bending it a little bit more each time.
Right, yeah.
I'm re-changing the direction and pushing down a little bit more.
Excellent.
And just doing that over and over again until we get about the right amount of shape. And we'll go and check it.
Yep.
So let's have a look now.
Okay.
I think this should be much closer.
Okay.
Need a bit of a twist here.
Yep. It does tend to want to walk, doesn't it, when you start stretching and moving it around in different areas?
It does. And if you watch the panel, everywhere you move, it changes somewhere else. So
yes.
we're pushing here.
And that's moving up.
It's moving at this point.
Yeah.
So every time you move a part of the panel, somewhere else in the panel changes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got to be able to have one side of the piece.
Yes.
You go, that fits. And then now start changing this bit.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just end up in a big circle.
That's right. So a little bit like a Rubik's Cube, you've almost got to move it out of a place sometimes to then know that it'll come back in later.
That's pretty good example of that. A Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. So you've got to be working ahead of the material as you go, pretty much.
One side of Rubik's Cube, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to think ahead of the material. So that's why these reference lines are so important.
Okay.
That tells us from this point on, if we bend it more or less from there on,
Yes.
we take it off, have a look, see what it's done, and then come back and then rechange it again.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just you're guessing where the shapes are.
Okay. Yep.
So we've got this outer panel now. It's about half the height
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
before.
it's come down from what it was before. Yeah, and it's not putting up too much as a battle to sit down in place.
Not quite as much as the battle. So
Yeah.
we'll keep working on this for
Yeah.
another half an hour.
Sure.
25 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll come back towards the end, and when you're maybe perhaps ready to mark some trim lines and things.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we'll go over where we're up to now, Adam.
Cool. So back again on this one. We've now got these two joins here, both on the bottom and this top join welded together. And we just finished smooth them out to make sure that the rest of the pieces fit together.
Okay. Yep.
You can see there's a couple of lugs. We've left a little bit of material on the edge here, just so we can keep everything located and that we're all fitting back to the same place.
Right.
But now this side's, the rough shapes of this are finished.
Yes.
And it's just some smoothing out work to finish off.
Right.
So now we're going to go onto the left-hand side. Starboard side?
Port on that one.
Port side.
Yep.
Make sure I get that correct.
Yep.
Go onto the port side and finish this top join, and that should pretty much complete the shapes for this back tail piece.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because earlier this was a bit separate from this part, wasn't it? And there was an overlap line through here.
That's right.
So you've trimmed back those two edges so that they could then be welded, and it's been welded through.
That's it.
Yeah, and you also did the same down here too. This was a bit of a cut line up through here with some overlap in the skins as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
So as we can see here, Adam's finished the welding on that. So everything is pretty much at its correct shape, isn't it? There'll probably be a little bit of extra smoothing and finishing off work.
Yep, a little bit of smoothing, finishing off work, just refining details. But as for the shape itself, we've got the whole piece sitting within a few millimeters of the actual planes.
Yes.
So that's where all the time and effort goes into. It's just getting all these edges to fit and having these shapes and all the sort of shapes transition and look smooth and nice.
Yeah, because you can just move something slightly, and even out here it might start changing areas like that too, won't it?
That's it.
It's just steady as you go without rushing too much.
Yeah, if you move one tiny edge here, you'll end up seeing the fix on the side and the back.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just got to keep track of all those
Yeah,
details.
yeah. I'll just walk around with it so that we've actually put the elevators in place at the moment too. We'll just lift that up to close to neutral position. So they're just on there, yeah, so that the counterweight is pretty much even through that gap there. And there's more fairings that have to go on here yet. So with this shape of the end of the elevator, the fairing will continue from here and come back onto the back of the fin. So we'll work towards that as well. And as Adam mentioned, just over on this side, the actual shaping is pretty much all there. And Adam will be doing another trim and cut on this side to join this lower piece here to the upper. Yeah, so you've been able to trim off this the two halves on this side and do some welding.
Yeah, we've trimmed off this side, so we've joined these two halves together. So
Right.
now this whole tail piece is all complete and wrapped up together.
Yep.
So really cool to see it at this stage, because now we can use this as our sort of core piece to work backwards.
Okay, yeah, good.
Probably the most complicated part in the whole, or complicated piece of sheet metal on the whole plane.
Yes, yeah, just getting those complex contours happening right through there. They've got to transition off the fuselage up into the fin and down across onto the tailplane.
Yeah. And just
Yeah.
seeing so many different shapes come together.
Yes.
You wouldn't see this on anything else except for an aircraft like this.
That's right, yeah. So from here we might start working on the very rear fillets that interact with the elevators down the back of the aeroplane. So yeah, earlier on we attached the spare pair of elevators to the back of the tailplanes here, and yeah, Adam's just sort of moving the elevator to the neutral position up onto the horizontal relative to the horizontal stabilizer. So it's these fairings you're holding right there, isn't it, Adam, that we've got to now position and get them sorted.
Yep, so these are our next part to fit in place. There's a few moving pieces to get them to interact with, but we'll get these fitted to this the tail fin,
Yes.
and the last piece we'll do is that a metal fill-in piece.
Yeah, that'll be replaced with a new piece of metal.
That'll be replacing the piece of metal.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Exciting stage.
Yes, it is. Yeah, this particular one is an original piece that was once fitted to a wartime boomerang, so it will repair up enough and well enough to be used as a flying piece again. You can see it also interacts with the underside of the tailplane here, and that centre fillet there that still has its old foliage green paint will also be replaced once this tail fillet's on. And yeah, the equivalent fillet on the starboard side here is actually a brand new piece, so that will be fitted into place to match the left hand side and also be in the neutral position for the relative to the elevator. Adam's been hard at it over the last couple of days, working on the back of the aeroplanes, just organising all these fillets and fairings that run around the tail planes, the vertical fin and the timber shell. So getting them all to fit in nicely. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Adam, just sort of run through the sort of things you've been doing to get all these to fit in place.
Sure. We'll start off at the front here. So on that front panel, we've been doing the fine-tuned fitting all the way from the fuselage backwards.
Yes.
So you can see there's a little joggled edge here that allows these two skins to sit level with each other.
Okay.
So we've worked from the top, just fitted it all the way down so it's nice and snug against the fuselage.
Yeah, so it's been trimmed back now, so the edge of this fillet just sits inside this little joggle, and that's all nice and smooth, and it'll just get a little bit of final shaving and fitting up around there. Yeah,
That's
please
right.
continue, Adam.
And so we've been working from there backwards, just making sure all these edges are fitting nice and snug down to the fins and the wing.
Yes.
And there's that little joggled edge that's on the side of this, so that'll give it that last little bit of pressure just down against the wing.
Yeah, it's a little break edge that's put along there. The edge is just deflected slightly in the last quarter of an inch, and that just allows it to hug. You'll find here too that the fasteners are still a fair way from the edge of this metal, so this will still all be trimmed back to a final line for all these different panels to line up nicely. So the clecos here indicate the final anchor nut positions, but the skin will still be a bit trimmed. But what Adam's been able to do is to get them to all match out anyway, so regardless of where they're trimmed back to, it's going to look great.
That's it. Yeah, so they're all flowing in pretty nicely now. And we've now got these extra panels towards the back here.
Okay.
So we've got the hen's tooth panels, which are a pretty cool looking shape.
Yes.
And they're matched to suit the rear fin. So that fin's slightly offset and engineered into the plane.
Okay.
So these distances are slightly different to each other.
Yeah.
And so we've got two different sides here. One's from an original
Boomerang on that side, on the port side, and yeah, this side's a brand new Wirraway one for the starboard. However, we found that Wirraway, because the fillet lines are a bit different to Boomerang, that you've had to add a few extra pieces of metal on the edges, so you've welded them in place.
Yeah, so these tabs where the fixings are located, we've had to extend those out a bit and change the angle outwards, just so we can get all these parts to match up.
Yes, yeah. And it's got this unusual shape here too, because our elevators finish just about a quarter of an inch off from those, and then the line of the elevator continues around. So when the elevators are in the neutral position, these fairings line up with that trailing edge of the elevator to make it all look good.
That's the one. And over this side, it's got an original fill-in panel for the fillet between the wing and the fin.
Yes.
So these ones, the holes didn't quite line up to the original bodywork, and it started to fracture on the edges.
Yes,
so,
and each of these panels was handmade in the factory, and one really didn't fit another aeroplane, so they all had to be hand drilled.
That's it. So we just made a new panel through here. I sort of blended all those original parts in nicely.
Okay.
So we're getting to the stage now, as I mentioned before, just trimming those last edges and putting all the last sort of holes in, so that'll wrap up the back end of it.
Yeah, and you've been also doing the fillets underneath the horizontal stabiliser as well, and working forward through there. So they're at the 99% stage. You've been able to get the shapes to sit in there very well. And it's really hard to show. There's just a very subtle curve with the tailplane here coming this way and a slight curve of the fuselage going the other way. plus this curve going right through it. So to make the aluminium do its job and follow all those contours, it's not an easy thing, is it?
Yeah, it's not an easy thing.
Yeah, so
especially having several panels over the top of each other.
Yeah.
It has to align with the holes nicely,
Okay.
and then the shapes have to blend nicely together.
Yeah, yep. So all this is looking really good. It's just going to need some final trimming, blending, and the final anchor nuts and screws to be put in place, some priming and painting, and this back of the Boomerang is going to look fantastic. Okay, we're back here with Adam again, and this time we've been working on an infill panel in the exhaust duct. So on the starboard side of the Boomerang here, we have this large dish section that the exhaust pipe sits in and goes back. But then partway back through this duct, we have a dish section here coming out onto a relatively flat panel. And it's this piece which is actually detachable from the rest of the aeroplane that Adam's been working on and fabricating a new one. So yeah, Adam, we've got an original sample down here on the floor, and the new one that's just partially fitted, trial fitted on the aeroplane here, just to make sure that this duct and everything is going to come up to working into the main exhaust duct nice and smoothly and evenly. So yeah, perhaps you could go through what you've been doing with this panel.
Yeah, sure. So far on this panel, we've got the shape just so it follows the curvature of the plane, and got that sitting in place. It's got a little tiny bit of a reverse down here.
Yes.
Just to match up to this bottom edge, and that's where it curls into that wing.
Yeah.
So once we had that sitting in place, we went on to this front curvature, got all that sort of sitting down and just had this edge forward. It's a bit of a tricky edge here, because it's got to go in multiple different directions.
Yep.
Today we actually spot welded this one on, so we've got it all sort of fitting together and just gapping up and doing the last little fine tuning to the edges at the moment.
Yeah, so when you say spot weld, that's all these fine little spots that we see around here, which is actually a method of joining the couple of pieces of stainless together.
That's the one, yep. Yeah, so it's like a big sort of tongue machine that just pushes the metal together, puts a heap of current through it,
yes,
and melts the actual material in between.
Right.
So we get to see like a little bit of melted metal in between, and it's a nice sort of neat, even way to join the metal.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just, as it says, spot welds. They're welds of metal, but just in an individual place as it goes along.
That's it.
And so you've pretty much replicated what was done originally. So yeah, if you can show us over this original panel down here.
That's it. Yeah, so this original panel, so this has come off one of the planes. You can see it's got drag marks and it's pretty deteriorated.
Yeah, it's had a bit of a hard time.
Had a bit of a hard time.
Because the aeroplane was scrapped after all.
Yeah, scrapped and
dragged along the ground.
You mentioned they cut them apart with an oxy welder, and then sort of just drag the pieces out by sort of chains and ropes.
Yes.
So it's not too much left of it.
No, but it is a good sample for us to use to make the replacement, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, it's a perfect example to make a replacement thing. And being able to copy all these little inner braces, little brackets.
Yes.
And we don't need this hole anymore because that was for the gun heating.
That's right, gun heating duct, which was actually deleted on the Boomerangs later on in New Guinea because they didn't want too much hot air getting into the gun bays and causing issues with all the ammunition in there.
Yeah. In Australia and over this side of the world, don't need too much of that.
That's right. So perhaps you could show us the inside of our new panel as well, so we can see the equivalent parts in there.
Yeah, sure.
So just take a couple of Cleco pins out and some clamps.
This last one here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a look at the braces. On this one,
okay.
Actually copied all these inner braces here.
Yes.
And try to keep the spot welds and everything in the same place.
Right.
You can see on this back piece, we've got this extra little brace piece in the back that stops here. And it's all the spot welds are all zigzagged.
Okay.
So we're trying to just mirror image that straight over to the new piece.
Yes, yep.
And zigzag them exactly the same.
Yeah, so we now have that extra double piece around here, which mimics the original of this piece from World War II.
That's it. Yeah,
and the little braces back here as well, which have been placed through the Jenny wheel to give them that shape, which matches the originals as well.
And all contoured to fit the plane.
Yes, because you've shaped this outer panel too, haven't you? So that it continues on with the contours of the fuselage as it came around there.
That's it.
Yeah, so at the moment we've only got these small 332 drill holes picking up existing anchor nut holes on the other side to help locate the panel. They'll come out to 3/16 screws ultimately to match the originals that were there.
So we're down to the basic last steps of just fine-tuning all the edges, getting rid of all the ripples from the spot welds.
Yep.
And the last part will be just cutting out the outer shape, which will be to fit the outside.
Yeah, to match that original shape that's down there. Yeah, well, great stuff, Adam.
Cool.
We'll follow on through as this draws to an end. Well, I hope you've enjoyed Adam's explanations of the work that he's been doing on Kermit's Boomerang, from the saddle fillet right down the rear of the aeroplane to the exhaust infill panel. If we just pan forward and look at the airframe from here, you can see across here is the firewall of the fuselage. So at the rear we have the cockpit section, and forward of there we have the engine mount, and that will go on also to the engine installation. It's from this line forward that the majority of the formed sheet metal work to be finished on Kermit's Boomerang still needs to be done. So as Adam's busy schedule permits over the next few months, he'll be working on things like the wheel well fairings, which as you can see are a fairly complex shape in themselves. So we have the starboard wheel well fairing there and the port wheel well fairing on the other side as samples. Another sample here is the chin cowl, which locates underneath the engine. That transitions off the wheel well fairings and then moves forward up into the front cowling ring. There's another panel that sits forward of this oil tank cover panel here as well, and with this curved upper section, that shape transitions all the way forward over the top of the cowling for the carburetor inlet duct. And we have a sample of that on the floor over here too, which is a bit sad, but there's a lot of information and detail on this part which can be utilised to produce the new parts, including this duct here, which joins into the top of the carburetor. So as the year progresses, we should see more of these parts being produced with Adam's help, and also from Scott and myself, of course, as we work towards completing all these parts for Kermit's Boomerang.